Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sotade Olusegun. In today's video, we're going to dissect Sotadeology Lecture 1, Introduction 1.0. So now what we're going to do in this video is to dissect the flipping mechanism of the universe, where Sotadeology is a study of a flipping mechanism of the universe for balanced solution. So it's basically a flipping mechanism for systems of the universe to have balanced motion. So now this here we have time energy wave model. So this model will be what I'm going to actually explain in detail, but for this particular lecture we're going to treat the introduction to this Sotadeology. But first thing I want you to see here is that when you have time trajectory traveling inversely to energy trajectory, you can get to know that when time is wide, then energy will be low. Then when the scaling of time is narrow or low, then energy will be high. That is the kind of relationship between the universe. And you can see equilateral triangle right here. This trajectory represents constancy of gravity, while this trajectory represents constancy of light. Now the trajectory we have at the middle, which is the vertical line, that is the instancy of time. You can see that the trajectory is far beyond the suspension, the quantum suspension that we have here. It goes beyond that to connect to the mass worth of the positron, which is outside the time energy wave model. So basically the positron we have here is the antimatter of the electron that we have in the system. So definitely there is going to be a kind of another time energy wave model outside. So I normally interpret this to be I dimension. So if we have this to be 2 dimension, and then the system goes beyond the 2 dimension to 3D, which is to 3 dimension, for us to be fully. So what we actually get here is the complete awareness of our of the whole system. So that is consciousness right there. So now let's go straight into what we need to do today. Supposing we just have this point, we have this point. Without having this other point, there is no way we could have, labeled this point, because this point will be non-existent. So now we have another point, then instantly there is this relativity or this relativistic connection between the two. By having such relativistic connection, we can label this particular point to be our evolutionary singularity in this case, and then we can label this to be black hole singularity. So with that, we can get to know that this is the first point and this is the second point. Now, can we really say this is the first point and this is the second point? We need to dive deep to know the science of dimension. So what we really have here is just a dimension. This is 1D, 1 dimension. When we now have a straight line like this, it's quite different from having a diagonal line, just as what we have here and what we have here. Having a diagonal line simply means that you have a constancy being diagonal. So we normally have light trajectory to be at 45-degree angle. But in this case, the light trajectory is we have it at 315 angle, because it's the constancy of light is traveling inversely to the constancy of gravity. So we have the constancy of gravity at 45 angle right up there. So having a straight horizontal line or straight vertical line like this is another thing entirely. So we can call a straight horizontal line an instant line, We can call it an instant line, just as we have this line to be an instant line. Now, the challenge that we have is that when something is said to be instant, there shouldn't be a kind of elongation. An instant phenomenon has to be a kind of disruption, a kind of non-existent. And that is why time is invisible, because the default nature of time is instant. The default nature of energy is infinite. Now, for us to have this kind of elongation, definitely there is still a subtle relativistic scaling of time to energy, because it's only the infinite nature of energy that can elongate the trajectory of time in this manner. And so once we have this as a line of our 1D, then could we have said that we have this kind of system right inside this horizontal line? Because we need to actually dissect the emergence of the two lines. Do we have them? The emergence of the 2 points, rather, not line. The emergence of this point and this point. Do we have them emerging at the same time? If we have them emerging at the same time, how can we now have this relativistic connection? Will it come right from this point and right from this point till it reaches the equilibrium? Or will it just emerge as we have here to get to this here? So now we have, let's say we have our evolutionary singularity right here, and we have our black hole singularity here. The ideal way to have relativistic scaling that we connect from evolutionary to the singularity, from evolutionary singularity to the black hole singularity, would be to have this kind of system. Because if we have these 2 points emerging at the same time, then if the relativistic scaling, if it comes from either, let's say it comes from 2 of them to meet at this central point, then it will serve as a kind of discontinuous connectivity. And so that doesn't represent the relativistic scaling or connection the way it ought to represent it. But in this case, if we have this point and this point emerging at the same time, then the constancy of gravity and constancy of light to this instancy of time can emerge instantly and be flipped instantly to have these 2 points. And so we're going to have, based on the trajectory of the wave, we're going to have continuous connectivity of the relativity in that sense. So now, how can we now describe this, our 1D line? Do we have time energy relativistic tapestry in this line as it is to connect our evolutionary singularity to the black hole singularity? That is the question we need to ask. And the essence of Sotadeology is for us to understand the kind of relativistic scaling that we have between these 2 points to have this one dimension, because that is where this is the beginning of dimensions. And so now, if we now say that we should have this kind of system right inside this line, then that actually is against having momentum, is against the rule of having a space, because the trajectory that we have, the momentum we have, is more or less like a momentum in time, not in space. If we now have another 1D such that we have 2D, if we have another 1D below, and that 1D and this 1D gets connected such that we have 2D, we can then say that we now have momentum in space. But as it is now, this can only be interpreted as having momentum in time to have that elongation. But now we can see that even in the trajectory of time, we have elongation. And there is no way we can have a measurable instant phenomenon without having elongation. So right now, what I will now say here is to say that we have a static and undulating field. We have a static and undulating field in this sense, and the phenomenon we have here is something that is telling us that space is fundamental, not emergent. Space is fundamental, not emergent, because by having suspension here, that's another proof that space is fundamental. So basically, we can now say that space is fundamental, but right by having this 1D, we don't really have the usual relativistic scaling of time to energy. We only have the stacking of time to energy traveling through a compacted space. So basically what we have now is that we still have space right inside this line. For the thickness of this line will determine if we have space or not. So the thickness of this line indicates that there is a virtue of space that is being stacked upon time and energy as we have it. And the effect of relativistic scaling of energy's infinity to time instancy enables us to have the line as we have it. So that is the definition of the 1D that we have right there, and that is, the introduction to the Sotadeology lecture 1, introduction 1.0. Subsequent video we will dive more onto it. We'll go to the 2D, and from there we'll go from 1D to 2D, from 2D to 3D, then till we get to 3D, where we'll be able to then dissect our time energy wave diagram. So that is that. So I believe this video is quite informative. If it is so informative, don't hesitate to like this video, share it with your friends. Then I will put a link to my research publication in the description below. You can just explore that to work more on this new field, which is, well, like I said, Sotadeology is a newly proposed field, and I come about the name, or I coined the field to be Sotadeology based on the fact that there was one poet, a Greek poet, that invented palindromic poem, which is a kind of poem that you can read forward and backward, you understand? And I was able to invent this particular flipping mechanism of the universe, and so our surnames are Sotade. I mean, his own surname is Sotade, my surname is Sotade, so together we now have Sotadeology as the title of this field. So that is that. Don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel so as to be informed, so as to get the subsequent video uploads notification. Thank you. God bless you.